Hey, hello. I'm going to jump straight into it. It's me, it's Craig. Welcome to Flooded. Nice to be here, Dice. I want to talk about Emily Maitlis. She is the person who fronts the BBC. She's the presenter of Newsnight, uh, RTS award winning journalist and broadcaster, Newsnight's lead presenter. She presents general elections for the BBC, covers US politics for the programme from across America. She's won plaudits for her long form interviews on Newsnight. She has done some great stuff. But there's a fundamental problem with Emily, and that's her Twitter account. Because she has been, in the past, found out or decide she has a, let's put it this way, she has a left-leaning she's kind of driven to the left a little bit, and I think she finds that a little bit difficult sometimes to not share that with the world. And sometimes you can just forget where you are and what you are. You just accept that you're doing the job you are, and you just behave however you like. And that's not a privilege that all of us have. I know that when I'm working on television programs, I certainly cannot be tweeting. If I'm known publicly to be working on that show, I can't say what I'm like just as a camera operator or a producer. But Emily's kind of quite happy to do that. In February 2021, she a complaint was made that she tweeted from a personal account a tweet by Piers Morgan which read, "If failing to quarantine properly is punishable by 10 years in prison, what if the punishment for failing to properly protect the country from a what's the punishment for failing to properly protect the country from a pandemic?" A member of the public complained this gave an impression of partiality in a controversial matter. Because at that stage, you got to bear in mind at that time it was not decided one way or the other where the government had failed or made any failings, and they'd done. It was kind of an unfair assessment. Although I know everyone's very worked up about this at the minute, and they probably say no, it's not. It's very clear they were, but I understand that. Expressions of opinion on social media can take many forms, from straightforward tweets to updates, sharing or liking content. Following particular accounts for using campaigning or political hashtag. Basically, staff, if, for example, a member of staff repeatedly likes or shares without content reflecting a particular point of view on a matter of public controversy, it might create an impression that individual agrees with that view. So it's all about sort of how it looks. And yesterday, Boris Johnson was he was in the House of Commons. He was as Prime Minister's questions, and there was a bit of a to-do. It became a bit shambolic to a certain extent. One MP being told to leave, calling him a liar, and he started accusing the opposition of not in a past career not catching Jimmy Savile, the child predator, unbelievably. And so it all became a bit of a shambles. And I don't think there's much doubt that it was. But what happened was that Emily decided to tweet that out as such. If I just open this with, I'll open it in photos, and I can just share it with you. Here's the tweets that she retweeted. There's a couple. One is from Rory Stewart. He ran for mayor. He used to be a member of the Conservative Party. He ran for mayor for London, and now I don't know what he does. But he's a blue tick guy, and he's commented on the House of Commons, saying the sheer tawdry Trumpian shabbiness of the whole thing. It is difficult to see how much more of this party our political system can survive. Emily from the BBC retweets. And then Anne Isaac said, "I've never thought today would be the day I remind folk of this. Free ports were entirely possible within the EU." That's not a pro or anti-Brexit statement. It's simply a fact. Emily is retweeting that as well. So what we have there is a BBC journalist doing exactly what they're kind of been told not to do. And I just don't think they're being told harshly enough. We have, or when I was trained at the BBC, I was given this. This is the BBC guidelines, and page 1 of this is all about impartiality, right at the very beginning. Impartiality. That's the number one thing. that we had to be absolutely across, not just from a news point of view, because I don't work in news, but in terms of any sort of political opinion or opinions about things, we had to be impartial. If we were doing something with Nintendo, we couldn't just favor Nintendo. We had to also have PlayStation there. You know, it was across the board of everything we did. You can't just say, oh, I got this from Tesco's, say, oh no, that's also available in Morrison's. You have to be impartial about everything that you do. You can't favor one thing or the other. But when it comes to votes and politics, it's super important to be impartial, especially if you are a state-funded broadcaster. I know it's different, like in the US, you have like Fox might be, they're Republican, and then you've got CNN who are supporting the Democrats, and it's all very bi-party polarization, and that is kind of like fine, I guess. It's highly entertaining, but I would argue that we need to reestablish the meaning of the word journalist. For me, journalist needs to mean somebody who is about informing you in a balanced way. So not just trying to convince you of, hey, these guys are saying something better than those guys, therefore you should vote for them. That's not journalism for me. That's kind of propaganda. That's what the party wants you to do. So I think what you should have is a journalist saying, this is almost a really boring job, really. This is what this party says. This is what that party says. It's a fact. Asking each of them very challenging questions that you, as a viewer, would be asking, or as a reader would be asking, or as a member of public in that country would be asking. That, I think, is what journalism should be, which is why I always argue that you can't be an activist and a journalist. You can't be an activist and a journalist. And if you're a journalist that is favoring one party over the other, you're essentially doing the job of an activist. And you can't be an activist and a journalist. So when Emily Maitlis is retweeting certain perspectives that are very anti the government, it looks like she's agreeing with that opinion. And that therefore looks like that is the BBC's opinion, not just hers, but the BBC's opinion. Now, I've often argued that what should happen is when you sign a contract with the BBC or any institution which really wants to have credibility for being unbiased, there should be something in your contract to say you won't tweet stuff out that is to trying to convince people one way or the other. You'll only be factual in your tweets, and don't inject your personal opinion into them. I think that's like very important. I think it's relatively easy to do, is it not? I know that the temptation to tweet and retweet is huge. I think we need to stop being babies and start managing our lives. Get rid of the habit of picking up your phone and just like, oh, here's my opinion, everyone. There you go. That's my opinion there now. There you go. Oh, no retweets, no likes, nobody cares. But you've just spent, by the end of the week, I don't know, 3 hours writing 250 tweets that nobody cares about. Keep your opinions to yourself or don't. It's up to you. But on the basis of that, and the basis that she's kind of been caught before, she did a piece to camera at the start of a show, and it was just highly political. And she got reprimanded for that by Ofcom. Let's just quickly look at, or just to show you the guidelines. There's a whole thing on the BBC editorial guidelines about diversity of opinion, impartiality. All this stuff has to be paid attention to, but they're just not doing it. They've even got a guidance for using social media on the BBC. It's the BBC website. How to behave. Behave yourselves. But the guy who's supposed to be enforcing all this is not really doing it. He is a guy called Tim Davie. He's the Director General of the BBC, and he was spoken to. I have to turn my speakers up for this. He was spoken to by, I think it's a select committee. It's like not a hearing as such, they're just asking him questions. And he's asked about social media.
What I want to do is, we are going to be publishing in the next few weeks, this is imminent, clear social media guidelines. And they will
so this is before they brought out the social media guidelines. This is Tim David. Notice how he's scratching his head. Now, I don't know, I'm not an expert on mannerisms, but that just makes me feel like this isn't somebody I'm believing. He doesn't seem confident in what he's saying.
We're going to take people off Twitter. I know people want to see, hard action on this.
Sorry, did you just say you'll be able to take... Sorry, excuse me, Mr. David, did you just say you'll be able to take people off Twitter?
Well, if they want to work for the BBC, I can ask people to... I can say you would suspend their Twitter account, absolutely.
Right, OK. Now, just on that point,
isn't that interesting? He said way back then, before he wrote those guidelines, he was saying way back then that, if people do sort of mess up, they can take them off their Twitter. I'm sure he'll do that for the camera operators. He'll do that for the sound recordists. He'll do that for the runners. But Emily Maitlis, all the people at the top will just be let off the hook. I think she should go in the same way they got rid of Jeremy Paxman. Not Jeremy Paxman. They got rid of Jeremy Clarkson. I know that he punched somebody, but they should start showing a little bit of control. And this guy is too soft. I'm sorry, but sack her. That's pretty much the end of the video, isn't it? When I've made that conclusion, I just think it's not. I mean, she's a great writer and she's a great presenter and she knows the job really well, but she can't keep herself. She can't keep her impartiality. She just can't be impartial, and it's such an important element of being a journalist. So I think go and be an activist writer for some other channel. But I don't think the BBC will survive as long as they're employing news presenters like Emily Maitlis, who's making slip-ups like that all the time. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Always happy to argue the corner of what I'm saying. Or you can get me on Twitter. I'm at Flooded. Nice to see you. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.